You close on your third duplex and order custom business cards. Wall Street syndicators pool investor cash to buy your entire street and raise the rents. Copy their deal math before an institutional landlord buys your block. You pay $800 each month to rent a bedroom. Tonight, an internet stranger hands you $600 to sleep on the opposite side of the drywall. You pocket the remaining $200 in profit. You earn physical cash for the first time while unconscious. You sign a piece of paper to secure a temporary lease instead of a permanent property deed. Three houses down the same block, a corporate buyer drops physical cash on the table to purchase an entire property. You uncover a hidden financial division in the neighborhood. The individual collecting the monthly payments and the individual holding the land deed operate as separate entities. Only the actual deed holder builds massive wealth. You dedicate the next 2 decades to discovering your role in this financial divide. You start level 1 as the renting subletter. You are 23 years old. You earn an annual salary of $41,000. You pay $800 each month for your personal share of a 2-bedroom apartment. You mimic your property manager on a smaller scale. You advertise the spare bedroom online to the public. A traveling nurse hands you $600 in bills and asks 0 questions about the arrangement. You flip the financial equation in your favor. You reduce your personal housing expense to a $200 net loss instead of the original $800. You possess 0 real estate assets. You position your physical body between an apartment and a human requiring temporary shelter. You pocket the price difference while actively violating a strict clause in your rental agreement. You discover the concept of arbitrage through this maneuver. You feel a deep fear with every dollar you earn. The nurse forgets to blow out a candle one evening. You smell smoke drifting through the drywall and wake up at 2 in the morning. You acknowledge your legal liability for a physical structure you lack actual ownership over during that specific moment. You save $8,100 on rent that year. You also suffer through terrible sleep for the majority of those 12 months. The property owner increases your monthly payment by $400 upon lease renewal. He wields total leverage due to his legal ownership of the physical structure. You recognize that acquiring the property title provides the sole defense against these arbitrary price hikes. You begin stashing cash for an initial property purchase you currently lack the funds to complete. You reach level 2 as the house hacker. You are 26 years old. You keep $12,000 in your savings account. You use a federal housing program to purchase a 4-unit building and occupy a single unit using a 3.5% down payment. You close on a fourplex in a Midwestern city for $340,000. You spend $11,900 in total initial cash. You use a banking loophole to make this purchase possible. The loan officer calculates 75% of the projected rent from the vacant units as your personal qualifying income. You possess 0 actual rental earnings at this moment. The future renters remain hypothetical. The bank approves the mortgage on these theoretical future cash flows. You secure the physical property keys with those theoretical numbers. You claim the smaller apartment for yourself. A family occupies the larger space and hands you $1,800 every month. Your combined monthly expenses for the mortgage and insurance total $2,500. You reduce your personal living expense to $700 a month. Landlords charge $1,400 in rent for the most basic studio apartment in this city. You experience a sense of victory over the local housing market. You discover the furnace stopped working during a January night. The repair contractor quotes a bill of $4,100. You keep $900 in your checking account. The upstairs family shelters a newborn baby in freezing temperatures. You must fix the problem immediately due to legal property obligations. You charge the repair bill to a credit card carrying a 24% interest rate. You absorb the financing costs because you lose your ability to ignore building failures the day you become an owner. You discover that the profit margin you collect also includes the financial burden of every catastrophic repair. 12 months pass. You finish the owner occupancy period from the federal loan program. You relocate to a rented bedroom. You lease your original unit to new tenants for $1,350 a month. You generate positive cash flow for your bank account from the entire structure. You weaponize your previous tenant's status to maximize the property profitability. You run a single property as a simple side project. You desire a scalable wealth building system. Investors name a specific strategy after the sound of a compounding portfolio. You transform an initial cash investment into 10 separate property acquisitions using this exact method. You reach level 3 as a portfolio builder at age 30. You memorize 4 specific real estate commands: buy, rehab, rent, refinance. You complete the physical renovation specifically to force a financial refinance. This specific sequence manipulates money in ways you have never experienced before. You locate an undesirable house and purchase it for $120,000 in cash. You scrape together those funds from your duplex profits and a private lender charging exorbitant loan shark interest rates. You spend $40,000 installing a modern kitchen, replacing the damaged roof, and fixing every outdated detail that terrifies a normal retail buyer looking for a perfect turnkey home. A bank appraiser visits the property. This appraiser ignores your purchase price completely. The appraiser evaluates the newly fixed, currently rented, and fully occupied house based strictly on its current market value. The appraiser records a value of $210,000. The bank refinances your loan at 75% of that new $210,000 appraisal. You originally invested $160,000 total across the purchase and the rehab. The bank hands you back $157,000. You keep the rental property, collect tenant payments, and retain nearly all your initial capital to repeat the process. You pay zero taxes on this withdrawal because the government classifies loan proceeds as debt rather than income. Your primary goal involves executing deals that consume only your time and preserve your initial capital. You deploy the exact same initial dollars across 10 different properties to maximize your portfolio footprint. The bank sizes this loan using the debt service coverage ratio. Lenders calculate this metric by dividing the monthly rent by the mortgage payment. Commercial lenders require the monthly rent to exceed the monthly mortgage payment by at least 25%. You hunt for profitable deals in cheaper cities like Cleveland, Detroit, and Memphis. Houses in these specific markets cost less than a used vehicle and generate immediate positive cash flow every single month. You repeat this exact process 11 times over 4 years. You acquire 11 rental units and achieve millionaire status on paper. This rapid expansion changes your daily habits and emotional responses. You ignore phone calls after 9 p.m. Late-night calls exclusively involve overflowing toilets, dead furnaces, or recently unemployed tenants facing imminent eviction. You easily recognize the specific flat vocal tone indicating a tenant will skip their upcoming monthly rent payment. You sign an official eviction notice for a single mother exactly 2 months behind on her rent on a random Tuesday morning. The physical act of signing that legal document takes exactly 4 seconds. You experience zero emotional reaction to signing that document. This absolute absence of emotion scares you. You no longer panic over minor issues like smelling a candle through a drywall partition. The daily grind of managing 11 properties changes the way you process stress. 11 single-family homes fail to provide the necessary scale. You require massive scale. You need an apartment building. You enter level 4 as an operator at age 35. Single-family homes require individual loans, separate roof repairs, and 3 a.m. emergency phone calls. Faster investors purchase entire apartment buildings based entirely on the monthly revenue the property generates for the owner. You buy a 20-unit apartment building for $2 million. The aging, exhausted seller neglected to raise the monthly rents for 6 consecutive years. The property generates $120,000 annually after expenses. Industry professionals call this figure net operating income. Paying exactly $2 million for $120,000 in annual income yields a 6% return. Investors refer to this metric as a 6 cap. You purchase the future potential of the property to maximize the financial return. Commercial real estate values equal the net operating income divided by the cap rate. Increasing the building income allows you to manufacture massive property valuation increases. You renovate individual units when tenants move out. You install a coin-operated laundry room in the basement. You bill the monthly water utility costs directly back to the individual residents. You formally appeal the municipal property tax assessment to lower your fixed monthly overhead. You push the net operating income from $120,000 to $160,000 within 2 years. Dividing that extra $40,000 in income by the 0.06 cap rate adds $666,000 to the total building value. You create this new equity by updating a financial spreadsheet for the bank. You avoid paying capital gains taxes upon selling the property by utilizing a 1031 exchange. You roll the entire financial gain into a larger building. The government allows you to defer all tax payments provided you continually reinvest the profits. The tax code gives you 45 days to identify the next property and 180 days to close the purchase. You repeat this upward mobility process continuously while intentionally ignoring the massive deferred tax liability accumulating in your financial wake. You excel at acquiring properties. Every transaction still requires your personal capital. Wealthier institutional investors operate using entirely outside capital. Joining that exclusive upper tier requires you to manage outside investor funds and assume full legal responsibility for their financial returns. Reaching level 5 makes you a syndicator. You hit 41 years old and leave traditional landlording behind. Industry professionals now classify you as a sponsor or a general partner. You change your entire business model with this new title. You keep your own capital in your bank account. You purchase properties using funds from 100 strangers. You keep the largest portion of the profits their capital generates. Professionals call this structure a syndication. You recognize these deals operating throughout the city while walking down the street. You locate a $30 million apartment complex. You contribute minimal personal cash. You raise the required equity from busy doctors, dentists, and engineers. These limited partners wire $8 million to your account. You earn an immediate acquisition fee by finding the property. You take 2% of the purchase price. The buyers hand you $600,000 at closing, months before the initial tenant pays any rent. The operation begins. You determine your actual wealth through the profit distribution. The limited partners receive their initial capital payout. They collect a preferred return, an 8% annual yield on their initial investment. You must wait for this payout before claiming any personal profit. You apply a 70-30 split to any revenue exceeding that 8% threshold. The investors who funded the entire purchase take 70%. You take 30% despite contributing minimal capital. You collect an annual asset management fee equal to 2% of the gross income. Back at level 1, you survived by keeping a $200 monthly spread. Today, you claim 30% of the upside on capital you never owned. You collect guaranteed fees regardless of the financial performance of the property. You see true wealth in your bank account. You manage demanding new obligations alongside this wealth. Your medical investors call your office. They read the quarterly reports and dislike the rising vacancy rates. These doctors remind you about their ownership stake using a polite tone that hides their anger. These investors use your management fee to gain leverage over your schedule. They now own a direct claim on your daily attention. You controlled your past residential tenants in this exact same way. You watch one of your sponsored properties slip underwater on a random Friday when interest rates spike. You fail to generate the promised 8% return for the property. You sit across a desk from a retired surgeon who trusted you with the inheritance of his children. You watch his expression harden as he processes the loss. You broke 0 laws and followed every signed document. You learn a harsh lesson about high finance. Investors offer 0 forgiveness for missed targets when large sums of money are involved. You start planning the specific personal evolution required to guarantee your permanent absence from that uncomfortable desk meeting. You solve this problem by stopping your land borrowing. You decide to buy the dirt. Buying the dirt crowns you the owner of the street at age 52. You grasp a century-old strategy that quiet families use while keeping their names off closing documents. You watch physical structures decay and crumble into dust. The soil beneath those structures remains permanent and solid. You shift your capital from brick and mortar to purchase the soil itself. You master the ground lease and discover the secret behind historic Manhattan real estate fortunes that families accumulated without lifting a single carpentry tool. You control the specific parcel. A developer constructs a 50-story tower of glass and capital on your soil. They claim the building but pay you land rent for 99 years. You write a legal contract that increases the rent payment every 25 years. You cash the monthly rent checks while dodging all property obligations. The builder fixes broken furnaces and patches roofs that leak water. Residents call you at 9 at night. The builder absorbs those repair expenses and handles 3 in the morning plumbing crises. You wait 99 years and the new glass tower transfers to your ownership at 0 cost. You reach the peak and complete the climb you started the night you sublet a bedroom closet. You expand your portfolio to cover a full city block. 3 commercial buildings pay you ground rent. You keep a 4th corner lot vacant. You generate more wealth keeping a prime downtown lot vacant than most workers earn through manual labor. You hire an estate attorney to execute the ultimate wealth preservation strategy. Buy, borrow, die. You trigger massive capital gains taxes by selling property. You secure bank loans against the land and live off the tax-free cash. You die and grant your heirs the street at a stepped-up basis. You watch financial gains that you deferred from your first duplex vanish into thin air. IRS agents erase that massive tax debt one time for deceased individuals. You conquered the block. You hold the soil beneath the luxury towers of other men and pass it to your children untaxed. No one ranks above you on this specific city block. You stand at the window of a corporate building you do not own and gaze at a street you control. You live 30 years without anyone collecting rent from you. Corporate executives operate above you. You lack the vision to spot them. You spent 3 decades climbing to the peak of a single street while an institutional buyer purchased 10,000 identical streets. Recall your very first property, the $120,000 purchase that filled you with immense pride and endless weekend renovation plans. Visualize the young couple who lost the initial bid on the adjacent lot. This regular pair brought an FHA pre-approval letter, hired a meticulous home inspector, and carried genuine optimism about painting the new nursery. They missed their chance against a large, faceless corporation. A huge cash-backed bid, offering an extra $12,000 above the asking price, closed in 1 week without any inspections or contingencies. An anonymous manager for a limited liability company or an obscure investment fund signed the closing paperwork. This particular fund acts as the ultimate property manager for your own residential rental tenants. The firm is Invitation Homes, controlling approximately 84,000 individual residences spanning 16 distinct housing markets, surpassing any single human being on planet Earth. Blackstone created this giant portfolio, snapping up about 50,000 foreclosed properties following the previous severe financial collapse. They acquired single city blocks and targeted zip codes using pure, unencumbered cash. Regular families saved their down payments while Blackstone launched a public offering, dumped their stock, and re-entered the rental sector to purchase 40,000 additional houses in one enormous transaction. You dedicated 3 decades to acquiring solitary homes with your personal signature on every mortgage. These corporate giants purchase entire municipalities before dinner using capital pooled from pension plans, insurance providers, and the precise retirement savings of that surgeon you let down. Your standard management fee taken from your limited partners matches the identical percentage Blackstone extracts from its own wealthy institutional backers. Both groups skim guaranteed profits from properties acquired using borrowed money they failed to guarantee. You occupy the absolute middle tier of this hierarchy. You dedicated 30 years mastering the landlord profession. The supreme holding entity skips collecting monthly rent from the occupants. They charge management fees to the middlemen who handle the actual rent collection. This apex predator acquires entire neighborhoods in a small fraction of the time you took to scale your local market. You hold the land beneath 3 apartment complexes. This corporation controls the soil beneath hundreds of thousands of households. Their senior executives remain oblivious to the distinct scent of wax melting through drywall. While they ignore the physical decay, you stand by your window observing the local neighborhood and grasp the complete game. The massive profit rests above the property deed. Financial partners collect hefty management fees and control the capital pool while avoiding broken furnaces, leaky roofs, and angry tenants. Private equity firms run this financial machine across multiple corporate tiers. The senior executives holding the primary funds purchase entire city blocks and dictate the strict payout order for each contractor, property manager, and local business involved in the deal. The corporate owners at the absolute top keep the largest share of the cash flow. You look out your window at the quiet neighborhood and spot the single critical question. Holding the physical property title yourself misses the entire point of modern real estate investing. You must determine if physical brick structures generate any real lasting wealth for everyday retail buyers. Corporate executives capture the absolute highest profits one full tier above the actual property deed itself. These distant bosses collect massive cash through management fees and large investment funds while skipping furnace repairs. You master the internal mechanics across every single tier of a private equity firm. Fund managers purchasing entire city neighborhoods dictate the exact payout order for every person involved today.